So Jaden Gibson getting hurt. This is a huge loss for Oklahoma, mainly because I think if you're an Oklahoma fan like me, you were really hoping that this was going to be the year Jaden Gibson really broke out and had a breakout season. Like last year, he had 14 receptions for 375 yards. He had an average of 26.8 yards per catch and 5 touchdowns last year. To put that in perspective, the next two highest total for touchdowns on the team were Nick Anderson and Drake Stoops. So Jaden Gibson, he had a really high ceiling, and I think a lot of people thought he had a lot of potential this upcoming year. So for those of you who aren't aware, Jaden Gibson got hurt in practice. It sounds like it's a knee injury. From what I've been told, it sounds like it could be serious. So we're praying for Jaden Gibson, praying that he can get back on track. But guys, I really think that Jaden Gibson, if he can get a medical red shirt this year, I think he's a red shirt junior, red shirt junior. Somebody will have to correct me if I'm wrong on that. Jaden Gibson's going to get an opportunity to maybe be wide receiver 1 or 2 in this room when he comes back. And I was looking at this because you've got Andrell Anthony, Nick Anderson, and Deion Burks, assuming your top 3 wide receivers. Now, obviously, Andrell Anthony, I think the jury is still out on when he's going to return. But when he returns, if he is what he was last year, those are your top 3 wide receivers. And so I was looking at it and I said, okay, Andrell Anthony, he's definitely gone this year. So he could be a top 3 round pick if he replicates what he did last year. Deion Burks, I think a lot of people have hopes that he'll be a first or a second round pick at wide receiver. And then you look at Nick Anderson. Like Nick Anderson boomed towards the second half of the season last year. He had 10 touchdowns, 798 yards, 21-yard average on those catches. Like Nick Anderson was an absolute dude, and he only did that on 38 receptions. So Nick Anderson could be a round 1 through 3 pick in the NFL. And if 2 of those guys, or maybe all 3, are gone by the end of next year, Jaden Gibson has a real opportunity next season to be one of the leaders in that wide receiver room and to be a guy taking a majority of those snaps. And he is a legit 6'4". So it's a huge loss for Oklahoma. And looking at how Oklahoma is going to maybe replace that hole, whether it's what I don't know whether you call it wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 4, because let's just assume Andrell Anthony's not back till halfway through the season. You're obviously looking for a wide receiver 3 replacement. And I really thought Jaden Gibson had an opportunity to place that or play that role. And so I look at it and say, who's going to replace him? Well, you've got Jalil Farouk. He is a tenured veteran in that locker room. And I think he's a guy that a lot of people expected to potentially be one of the stars. And it feels like it hasn't panned out too much. I mean, when you look at what he did last year, 45 receptions for 694 yards, but only 2 touchdowns. Jalil Farouk has all the talent. It's just a matter of being able to get him open, get it on the field. He's going to play a lot of slot this year. So I have a feeling we're going to see Jalil Farouk potentially shine in those moments. But I was texting Jay back and forth last night while we were in the hospital talking about this. And, like, hey, like, who do you think is going to be the replacement, right? Like, who do you think is going to step up? He was saying J.J. Hester, which makes a lot of sense because, like I said, Jaden Gibson is a legit 6'4". J.J. Hester is also a legit 6'4". And J.J. Hester has really been showing his stuff as well in this wide receiver room. He has done really well. There's been a lot of positive momentum behind him all throughout the spring and the summer. So J.J. Hester was an interesting name. I threw one out to Jay, and it probably is a little bit more far-fetched just because it's a true freshman, but I do think he will get run on the outside, and that's going to be Zion Kearney. Zion Kearney is the 6'2" wide receiver that Oklahoma got in last year's class. I think he came in at like 210 pounds, if I remember correctly, out of Hightower High School in Missouri City, Texas. Guys, he is a legit track speed. And in high school, he had 54 receptions for 1,000 yards and 10 receiving touchdowns. And that was really in like 1.25 year of being on varsity out there. So when you look at it and you see his junior 100-meter times, you see what he could provide for you as a threat on that offense. I think Zion Kearney is definitely an option. We were also talking about Ivan Carrion, and this is one that I felt like we knew he was going to get some run this upcoming season. The question was how much, because you had a Jaden Gibson, a Nick Anderson, a Deion Burks, you have an Andrell Anthony, you have a JJ Hester, right? So the question was how much run was he going to get? But like a legit 6'7", 196-pound, 200-pound wide receiver, when he was coming out of high school, Gabe Brooks even gave him comparisons to Johnny Wilson out of Florida State. But this is a guy that we thought maybe he would kind of be a wide receiver, tight end flex option. I don't think he was ever going to be putting his hands down in the dirt, but he could definitely play that stand-up tight end for you. But he's got elite size, and he's going to leverage his size and his frame over those DBs, but he's also got some speed to him as well. Like Ivan Carrion is, I don't think you look at somebody with that frame and go, yeah, he's going to be a speedy wide receiver for you. Listen, because of his long stride, he can get out in front of those DBs. He can get loose. And I would be excited to see what Ivan Carrion would even be able to do. So it's going to be interesting over these first 3 games to kind of see what packages the Seth Luttrell and Emmett Jones and Joe John Finley want to throw out there. Because I think Joe John Finley is going to have his hand in this as well, especially knowing that Ivan Carrion could potentially be out there. So looking at it, you've got in this room, you've got guys that could be 10 deep. This wide receiver room has completely changed since Emmett Jones got here. This ain't the wide receiver room of old where, it was still really good. Think about it. Like in years, you had Sterling Shepard, D.D. Westbrook, you had C.D. Lamb, Marquise Brown. You had all of these really great wide receivers. Shoot, you even had guys like Jeff Badette, who did really well for you. You had Nick Basquin. You had Charles Rambo. Like all of those guys did really well for you. This wide receiver room, though, might be one of the best Oklahoma has ever had, especially outside of that 2021 season where you felt like you had a lot of talent. It just felt like it didn't all come together. But it seems like Emmett Jones gets the talent to come together, and he really is able to figure out the pieces. I would also like to see some of the younger guys get some run. We saw Jaquez Petaway last year in some packages with the second string team. I do think he'll probably get a little bit of slot run. You've also got guys like Zion Ragins, or you've got KJ Daniels as well. 2 smaller wide receivers. They don't necessarily replace what you had in Jaden Gibson in terms of height, but they are guys that are talented. They have speed. You have Brennan Thompson in that room. So I think you guys get what I'm saying here. There's a lot of talent here, and I want to hear from y'all of who you think is going to be able to step up and kind of be a replacement to Jaden Gibson at this moment as he sits back, recovers, and hopefully takes up a leadership role in this wide receiver room, helps the younger guys, and then comes back even stronger next year, taking up one of those wide receiver 1 or 2 spots. Before we leave you guys, make sure you guys hit that like, hit the subscribe button. If you made it this far, make sure you guys join the discussion. Let me know who you guys think is going to be a replacement for Jaden Gibson.